Hello, welcome to the Library of Jennie Blair, where we uncover leadership stories that shape us and relationship ideas that inspire us. I'm Jennie, here to explore another great story with you, so let's get started. Before we start on our topic today, I want you to actually sit for a moment. I'm going to ask you some reflection questions that align with our commitment for co-elevation and living our lives through a growth mindset. So think about your answers, we'll go through them together. How are you empowering those around you to listen? Are you facilitating open, safe conversations in the workplace that are not just open, but also secure and conducive to growth? So think of examples when you might be doing that in the workplace. Another thing I want you to think about in this reflection space is, are you contributing to environments where your team members feel free to thrive and show up as their authentic selves? So how did I get to this spot in our podcast today? As you all know, I love to read and I love words, I love language, literature, and something I subscribe to is dictionary.com. And for one of their years, they chose the word allyship as their word of the year. And I think given what's happening politically in our world and just across the globe, it's important to unpack what does that word mean, allyship, when we talk about rights and access and democracy spaces in our work environment. So the official definition, according to dictionary.com, is allyship is defined as the status or role of a person who advocates and actively works for the inclusion of often marginalized or politicized groups in all areas of society, where you support that group's struggles and perspectives while you may not be a member yourself. You act in solidarity to all members of the community. So that's the official definition. But as you know, something we do here in the Library of Jennie Blair is we take an idea and figure out what it means in spaces of leadership, especially transformative community building. So why does allyship matter? Well, it turns out it matters a lot. It matters a lot because at the end of the day, our workplace is almost entirely shaped by how we interact with each other. And also, we know that studies show that fostering a sense of belonging within the workplace significantly enhances job performance, while also possibly and usually decreasing rates of absenteeism, employee turnover, and employee disengagement. So that's why I think it's important for us to talk about allyship, because it not only helps the people you're supporting, but it helps your workspace as well. Something we do pretty often too in the Library of Jennie Blair is I ask you to think about things and stop and reflect. It's important to have these moments of pause where you think about the content I'm sharing, but then actually take a moment while you're embracing the content to figure out what it looks like in your life. So let me ask you a few more questions, just like we did at the start of today's episode. So what does allyship mean on a personal level? It doesn't even have to be in the workspace, but can you think of a time you've been an ally for someone or someone's acted as an ally on your behalf? And now take those ideas of allyship and then think about how you can use that lens and examine that within your professional realm. Do you feel like things like courage, compassion, vulnerability, thoughtfulness are words that describe your workplace? And not just in moments of celebration, is that how you tackle team decisions, strategic planning, or goal vision setting? And this last point is probably the one that's most important to me, and so I really want you to spend time thinking about this question. Can your team unequivocally trust you, that you champion their best interests even when they're not in the room? And to me, that's a beautiful definition of what it means to trust somebody, that even when someone's not in the room, you always have their best interest at heart, and they know that about you. So when you go into leadership spaces, when you're on strategic planning committees, even if your team members aren't there, they know that you're speaking up on their behalf. And to me, when I think about that, I feel like I can self-identify that as an ally to my team members. So remembering that this is a podcast based on the concept of a library and reading and books, where can we dive a little bit deeper? So let me share some literature about this topic of allyship. The important thing that we do here in this space is we really advance leadership styles of kindness, education, co-elevation, learning. And so there's an article called A Tale of Three Allies. What does allyship look like in real life, which is available on neuroleadership.com, which I'll link below. And they go through very real, very concrete examples of what it looks like to be an ally in workspaces. Everything from how do you elevate someone's idea if they don't always have a connection to leadership, to making sure that your team can trust you when you go to bat for them on topics related to HR policies or salaries negotiations. So let's go through some bloom points like we normally do. Bloom point 1, how can you speak up and support? So allies should actively support those who are treated unfairly or sometimes overlooked by speaking up on their behalf. This involves defending individuals whose voices might be marginalized, or highlighting contributions that are frequently ignored, which overall enriches our collective understanding. And so I'll share an example of this. I had a student worker on my team who was accused of engaging in aggressive, assertive behavior with someone from another team. And when I went to talk to executive leadership about this, first I made sure that I had talked to my student worker ahead of time so I was able to understand from her perspective and her vision. But really what was important is that when I was in this meeting, I had to remember to speak on behalf of my student worker, that it's not enough to just protect my team or my policies or the institution I work for, but it's important to make sure that the person who's not in the room, but whom we're talking about, has somebody who speaks on her behalf. And that is always something that I pride myself on doing. And so the next time you find yourself speaking about somebody, make sure that you're speaking on their behalf and not just about them. Bloom point 2. Open doors for allies. Another important thing that you have to be doing as an ally in your workplace is making sure that everyone on your team has open access to learning resources, leadership roles, or professional or social networks, because this support helps individuals advance and grow, which again is important not just for them, but for your entire work community. And so examples of this might be if you have a project that maybe would benefit from one of your less senior people taking the lead on, go ahead and through coaching and mentorship, give them that opportunity to lead. It's an important opportunity for them to gain a new skill set, maybe even free up some time for you. Make sure you're guiding them through the process, but again, opening that door of learning for them is really important, and that's how you can be an ally to them. And finally, bloom point 3 is make sure that you're living in spaces where there's fairness and something I call transactional justice. So true allyship includes striving to make sure that everyday practices within your team, like decision making, meeting attendance, communication patterns, are equitable. And so by focusing on fairness in these areas, you can help create a more inclusive culture that naturally leans into everybody's contribution. So an example of this might be if you offer a hybrid schedule for folks, make sure that that's a discussion that all of the team members have and that the schedule works for everybody, that it's beneficial, and that you're careful how you have meetings in remote hybrid environments, right? You want to make sure that people on your team feel like they have equal access to you and that things that might happen in a team meeting are done in ways that support both people who are on site or might be working from home. Hi, everyone. Thank you for spending time with us today. I left you with a lot of important bloom points to think about. If you're not ready to practice allyship and advocacy in the workplace, at least spend this week thinking about what it looks like in your work environment and where you could take that next step. So for now, I'll see you next time. But in the meantime, we should all get back to work. Bye.